How much ammo capacity do you need in your concealed carry gun? A lot of people out there will tell you that the odds of needing to use that firearm at all are extremely low, and if you do need it, a small 5-shot revolver should be more than enough to take care of the problem in all but the most extreme cases. On the other hand, you got people who say it's not so much the odds but the stakes that matter. Because it's your life or maybe the lives of your family members on the line, you shouldn't compromise so easily just for the sake of convenience. You should carry a medium or a full-size double-stack handgun with a spare magazine and maybe even a backup gun. The problem with these two perspectives is that we can't easily dismiss either one of them because they're both perfectly reasonable ways to approach the question of ammo capacity. So I'm going to tell you right up front, I can't give you a clear-cut answer here, but I am going to share a few of the factors I think you should consider when you're trying to figure out how to approach this issue of ammo capacity. First, let's talk about numbers. How many rounds are actually fired in real-world incidents where civilians use a gun in self-defense? Well, unfortunately, there's not any comprehensive database for statistics on these kind of encounters. But when we look at some of the informal data that has been gathered from various sources, there are some pretty clear trends that start to emerge. In the overwhelming majority of incidents where armed civilians fire a shot in self-defense, probably like 70 to 90%, they are able to resolve the situation within 3 or 4 rounds, and usually closer to 1 or 2 rounds. Every once in a while, the good guy fires more like 5 to 8 rounds, and in some very rare instances, we see round counts in the low double digits. And if you look more closely into those instances with the higher round counts, in many cases, the suspect was actually disabled after the first couple of shots, but that wasn't immediately obvious to the good guy, so they kept firing until the gun was empty or until it was clear there was no more threat. So that would seem to support the idea that a low-capacity gun is adequate most of the time. But I would be reluctant to jump to that conclusion because we can't just consider ammo capacity by itself. Low ammo capacity is usually a quality of small handguns, and small handguns are harder to draw from concealment and they're harder to shoot quickly and accurately. Carl Rain is a shooting instructor who has done a lot of research on this kind of thing, and a couple of years ago he put together a little exercise. He had students of various skill levels shoot a drill that is designed to replicate the conditions of the typical close-range gunfight. First, they shot the drill with a medium or full-size pistol, and then they did it again with a smaller pocket pistol. For the skilled shooters, there was an average of just 3% difference between their two scores. The gap was a little wider with the intermediate students. Then the novice shooters, they didn't have great scores with the larger guns to begin with, and then their scores dropped an average of 20% when they used the pocket guns. So this suggests that the less skilled you are with a handgun in general, the more likely it is that a small gun is going to be a handicap for you. On the other hand, every year there are hundreds, probably thousands of untrained gun owners who manage to defend themselves with small, low-capacity, underpowered handguns. So how is this possible? Well, I think it's at least partly thanks to what we call the psychological stop. The attacker sees the gun, or he gets shot at, or even gets hit by a bullet that's not immediately fatal, and he decides he would rather be somewhere else. Psychological stops are great, but we cannot count on them. Some people just don't care that they've got a gun in their face or that you just shot their buddy. These people are very dangerous. They will not stop attacking unless we make their body stop working, and that requires us to put bullets in the right place very quickly. Is a handful of rounds out of a pocket pistol adequate to do that? Well, again, probably so, but sometimes it's not, and nobody can tell you for sure just how likely that kind of encounter is. I do think it's safe to say, however, that ammo capacity and gun choice in general really are not usually the deciding factor in an armed encounter. When an armed citizen loses a fight, it's often because they failed to recognize the danger early enough or because they failed to act quickly and decisively. These are the results of inadequate training and mental preparation, not inadequate equipment. So back to the ammo capacity thing, I think a highly skilled shooter with a lot of training can probably get away with carrying a small, low-capacity handgun like a snub-nose revolver or a single-stack pocket 9mm. But if you haven't had much training, then statistically there's a better than average chance that If you get into trouble, you can also get away with carrying a small, low-capacity handgun, but you're really playing the odds. Most people are capable of carrying a bigger gun than they think they can, but if you really believe you can only carry a small gun, if that's what allows you to carry every day, then go for it. Just understand that it's possible the small gun will not be adequate. It could be that there's not enough ammo, or you might have a hard time hitting your target, or you might not be able to grab that small grip quick enough. There's just more that can go wrong with a small gun, and undertrained people somehow end up being the victims of bad luck more often. So don't let the mere fact that you are armed lull you into a false sense of overconfidence. I think the bigger problem with a novice shooter using a small gun is not ammo capacity and not really that it's inadequate for self-defense. It's that learning how to shoot is a lot more difficult if all you have is a small handgun. There's more recoil, and people tend to develop issues with flinching and other bad habits. At the range, they fatigue more easily, and really, shooting these small guns is just not as fun. Newer gun owners are a lot more likely to lose interest or get discouraged if they're trying to learn with a small gun. I see this in shooting classes all the time. I would much rather see somebody learn the basics on a medium or full-size gun, and then if they don't want to carry that, then maybe they can carry a small gun with the same type of action and trigger as their training gun. Or if they don't want to buy two guns, maybe compromise and look into a double-stack subcompact 9mm. Something like a Glock 26 is much more forgiving for a new shooter than a Glock 43 or a snub-nosed revolver. I realize I've just scratched the surface of the capacity debate here. I didn't talk about reloads or larger, low-capacity revolvers. But I think the bottom line is that concerns about capacity should take a back seat to getting relevant training from a qualified instructor. Carrying lots of ammo is good, knowing how to shoot is better, and avoiding trouble altogether is best.